from Flagstaff.
Today I'm heading out on another adventure with Grand Canyon Adventures, and we're heading up to Page and we're going to have a look at some of the canyons. First, we're heading out of Flagstaff, past the Ponderosa pine forests and up through the Native American Navajo Reserve. The Navajo Reserve is pretty big, so it will take us at least an hour, maybe nearly 2. Today our tour guide is Milton, who is a Native American. He is part of the Navajo tribe. Our stops today will be Horseshoe Bend, Antelope Canyon, and the Glen Canyon Dam, which is on Lake Powell.
We get tornado-like winds that form out here. We call them the sand devil or the dust devil. Spinning winds that pick up a lot of sand and gravel.
The Navajo Reserve may seem like it's miles and miles of nothingness, but actually they have done an incredible job preserving the land exactly as it was, so it can be enjoyed for generations and generations, which, if this land was under federal control, would obviously not be the case. It would be developed, there would be probably housing and other amenities here, but the land is so preserved because it's so well looked after by the Navajo people. And also, just as a side note, it is land that belongs to the Navajo people, so they get to choose what happens to the land. It's their land, they were here first. Once we'd got about an hour into the reserve, we started to see some of the red rocks, which this region, Arizona specifically, is really famous for. So obviously you may have seen my Grand Canyon video already. If you haven't, please give that a watch. But this sort of terrain is very common across Arizona. It's very beautiful. It's what the state is known for. Our first stop is Horseshoe Bend, which is quite commercialised now. I'm not sure if this has always been the case. Regardless, they do have some toilets that you can use, but there's no other amenities here.
So good morning from Horseshoe Bend. This is not the real Horseshoe Bend, this is a poster. The real one is over there.
It's a very short hike out to the bend from the car park. It's definitely less than a mile. It probably takes about half an hour to walk. It's not an unpleasant view, and the path is well maintained, so it's a very, very easy hike. Horseshoe Bend is so named because of its shape. It looks like a horseshoe. Geologically speaking, it's an end-trench meander which was created by the Colorado River 5 million years ago. The region started to uplift and it trapped the Colorado River in its bed, and then the river cut through the land downwards to produce Horseshoe Bend. It's actually pretty scary being up here because it's about 1,000 feet down and there's no barriers, so you could, if you misfooted, fall into the canyon. If you're a bit more of a chicken like me, then there is an area with a barrier where you can stand and take selfies with no fear of death. And technically, I think Horseshoe Bend is part of the Grand Canyon because the Grand Canyon finishes at Lake Powell, which is slightly further upstream. And now we're heading to Antelope Canyon. Antelope Canyon is one of Arizona's most famous slot canyon. The land is owned and operated by the Navajo people, so if you want to come here, you need to get a Navajo guide. You're not allowed to take video footage at Antelope Canyon, so here are some of the pictures that I took and edited from my time there. This is the view from above the canyon, so you can see how the natives used it to hide from the early explorers. And this lady is one of the matriarchs of the Navajo people. That wasn't our last stop. We're now heading back through Page up to Lake Powell. This is our first view of the dam, and as you can see, it's pretty big. So probably the most famous dam in America is the Hoover Dam, which is just outside of Las Vegas on the border between Nevada and Arizona. Both are concrete arch gravity dams that sit between the canyons and the river. So the reasons why dams are needed in America is kind of complicated and not really summarizable in like a 30-second blurb. But Glen Canyon Dam and the other dams on the Colorado River basically manage the distribution of the water through different states that aren't coastal. So America has some issues with water, especially in states where they don't get a lot of rainwater. So they do try to manage the flow of water and make sure that it's distributed to states that need it. The Colorado River itself is the single largest source of water in southwestern USA. However, the flow of water hasn't always been dependable, which is why they introduced dams to help with the water flow. Some facts you may or may not know about the Navajo people. 1. They have their own president and their own governing bodies, much like America does. 2. The Navajo people pay taxes. Now, depending on where they work, depends on where they pay their taxes to. So if they work on the reservation, on the reserve, then they will pay taxes to their own people. If they work off the reserve, they will pay federal taxes. 3, they have electricity, they have an education system, their kids go to school. Now their kids can go to school on the reserve or off the reserve depending on the situation that they have. In terms of work, there's limited options available for working on the reserve. Most of the jobs on the reserve are related to tourism, so at the trading post or at Antelope Canyon, there are tour guides, etc. Those are jobs that are available on the reserve. Other jobs are available off the reserve, so that means you would have to pay federal taxes for those sorts of jobs, but many Navajo people work. As well as having their own governing bodies, they have their own police force. They have a lot of their own public services that are funded and paid for by Navajo taxes. I was really fortunate on this adventure to be hosted by a Navajo guide. So our guide was called Milton, or Eagle Two Feathers, and he was part of the Navajo people, and he spent a lot of time this day talking to me about the Navajo people and how they live. So I just want to give a shout out to Milton in the video because he was absolutely awesome. After this, we drove for 2 hours back to Flagstaff. We did stop at a Navajo trading post in Cameron. However, I totally forgot to film this experience, so I'm really sorry about that, but please enjoy the lovely views on our journey home. Bye from the Navajo reservation.